What if everything we know about the history of Earth is just a fragment of a much larger storyline? Imagine that millions of years before us, an advanced civilization arose, flourished, and vanished without leaving almost any trace. Today, we're going to explore this intriguing possibility, crossing science, geology, and imagination. By the end, you might see our own world with new eyes, and realize that perhaps the past hides more than we dare to believe. But before diving into this mystery, we need to understand what science says, and what it doesn't. According to current scientific consensus, modern humanity, Homo sapiens, has existed for about 300,000 years. The first organized civilizations, with writing and monumental architecture, emerged just over 6,000 years ago. Looking back, the narrative seems clear. Life began billions of years ago, evolved gradually, and only recently developed technological intelligence. There are no indisputable fossils, ruins, or records of human or humanoid societies much older than that. However, here's the crucial point. The geological timescale is immense. Earth's surface is in constant transformation. Mountains rise and erode, oceans retreat and advance, forests turn into deserts. Over millions of years, the planet can erase almost any physical sign of our presence. This raises a fascinating question. Could there have been, in some remote epoch, even before the dinosaurs, an intelligent species capable of building cities, machines, and art? And if it did exist, how could we detect its remains today? Science is cautious with such extraordinary hypotheses, but at the same time, our search for life beyond Earth shows us that, in theory, technological intelligence could have arisen more than once on the same planet. So the real question isn't just, did it happen? But, how would we know if it did? To answer, we need to imagine what would remain of our own civilization if it were swallowed by time. Let's do a thought experiment. Imagine that suddenly all humans disappear. In the first year, our cities would still be intact, only silent. Within a few decades, plants would sprout through cracks, roads would crumble, and animals would take over. 100 years later, most buildings would be in ruins, corroded by water and wind. After 1,000 years, only piles of rubble would remain, maybe a few more resilient stone structures. Over tens of thousands of years, even those would be consumed by erosion. Now, fast forward millions of years. Tectonic plates would have shifted continents, burying cities under kilometers of rock. Ice ages and volcanoes would have erased any surface traces. Real examples prove this. Pripyat, the Ukrainian city evacuated after the Chernobyl disaster, has been almost completely reclaimed by nature in just a few decades. Petra, the ancient stone-carved city, endured for centuries, yet wind and rain are slowly erasing its shapes. Materials like steel rust away, glass shatters, and concrete crumbles. Only colossal stone structures and a few deeply buried artifacts might survive. And even then, geological pressure would deform them until they were unrecognizable. If this is true for us, it would be true for any hypothetical civilization that came before. The absence of visible evidence is not necessarily evidence of absence, but there is one kind of trace that might endure for eons, and it's not in the walls of ruins, but in Earth's very layers. Not everything disappears easily. Certain signs of technological activity can survive millions of years, even if everything else is lost. These are called technosignatures. They're not sculptures, buildings, or machines, but chemical and physical alterations that leave permanent marks on the planet. For example, plastic production creates compounds that can fossilize in soil, forming detectable layers. Nuclear power plants and atomic tests leave radioactive isotopes that can be identified long afterward. Massive burning of fossil fuels alters atmospheric composition and, consequently, the sedimentary rocks formed in that period. Geologists already find abrupt events in the fossil record, sudden increases in certain metals or drastic changes in carbon levels. These are usually linked to natural phenomena like massive volcanism or asteroid impacts. But if an ancient civilization caused something similar artificially, such marks could be mistaken for natural events. Astrobiology, the science of studying life in the universe, searches for exactly these kinds of signs on other planets. Curiously, what we look for out there might be exactly what we overlook here. And when we look at Earth, there are some curious finds that defy simple explanations. Over the decades, certain objects and formations have sparked heated debates. The Klerksdorp spheres found in South Africa are small, incredibly symmetrical, and over 2 billion years old. Scientists say they're natural mineral formations, but others believe their precision suggests something more. Another example is the Yonaguni underwater structures in Japan, giant stone blocks forming platforms and steps reminiscent of ruins. Science points to natural erosion, but some researchers argue they might be remnants of a prehistoric city. There are also soil marks and rock formations that, at first glance, seem artificial, but are eventually attributed to wind, water, and ice. These discoveries remind us of a fundamental problem. Even if something is found, interpreting it correctly can be nearly impossible. A 100-million-year-old structure would be deformed, fragmented, and likely indistinguishable from a natural feature. The line between artifact and geological accident is thin. This means that if other civilizations existed, we might have passed over their relics without even realizing it. But regardless of direct evidence, this mental exercise turns into a mirror, because by thinking about them, we're also thinking about us. Reflecting on hypothetical lost civilizations is, at its core, reflecting on our own. If something like this happened before, it means intelligence and technology don't guarantee permanence. Time is relentless. Today, we're marking the Earth in unique ways: plastics, processed metals, atmospheric emissions. All of this will form a geological signature called the Anthropocene. For future explorers, these signs will be clear. But if they find us millions of years from now, our history might be reduced to a thin layer of chemical residue. The fragility of our presence on the geological timeline should remind us that we are passengers. Civilizations can rise and fall, leaving little more than dust. And here comes the final question. Could we be part of a cycle that has happened before and will happen again? If intelligent life isn't unique, maybe it blooms and disappears repeatedly over planetary history. Civilizations might arise, peak, and collapse, leaving only subtle traces for future curiosity. When we search for life on Mars or distant exoplanets, we look for exactly these clues: chemical changes, unusual structures, anomalies that suggest technology. Perhaps by finding them out there, we'll finally have the insight to look at Earth with different eyes. This hypothesis, though speculative, invites us to one lesson. What we leave behind defines how we will be remembered or forgotten. Today, we've explored the idea that we may not be the first, nor the last, advanced civilization on Earth. We've seen how time can erase almost everything, but also how certain marks might endure. Thinking about this is also thinking about our own future. If this possibility sparked your imagination, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment. What do you think we'd find if we could dig deep enough?